The airport was bustling, the hum of jet engines mixing with the chatter of travelers and the squeak of rolling luggage. But for him, every sound was amplified, every glance sharper than a blade. He felt the weight of dozens of eyes on him, the kind that judged before they even knew his name. "Sir, step aside, we need to check your bag," a voice barked. It wasn't casual. It was accusatory, filled with a kind of authority that made his stomach knot. He looked up to see the airport manager, a man with a smile that never reached his eyes. Calmly, he opened the suitcase, pretending to fumble as if finding something incriminating was a mere coincidence. The scent of polished floors and jet fuel couldn't mask the sting of humiliation. Travelers stared, whispers cutting through the air like knives. His hands shook, not from fear of flying, but fear of being judged, of being blamed for a crime he didn't commit. And then the manager held up a small bag of white powder, smirking. "Looks like we've got ourselves a problem," he said, voice dripping with satisfaction. But the man's heart raced with a strange clarity. This was only the beginning. The airport was quieter now, the chaos of early morning departures fading into a dull hum. He sat on a cold metal bench, hands still trembling from the humiliation, the small bag of drugs now sealed in evidence. His name was Marcus Ellis, a man who had worked his entire life to be invisible in a world that often refused to see him. At 34, Marcus had already learned the unspoken rules. Keep your head down, stay professional, and never give anyone a reason to suspect or target you. Even now, as he tried to compose himself, the whispers followed him. He could feel the eyes, some curious, some suspicious, others silently accusing. The airport manager, Darren Harlow, leaned against the counter, smirking like a cat watching a cornered mouse. Marcus clenched his fists, remembering the words of his mother. "They may try to break you, but you decide whether they succeed." Marcus wasn't alone in the world, though it often felt like it. His best friend, Jasmine, worked in airport logistics and had been his confidant for years. She knew the subtle indignities he endured daily, extra scrutiny from security, subtle comments that questioned his competence, and smiles that didn't reach the eyes of those in power. "Marcus, you okay?" Jasmine whispered, sliding into the bench beside him. Her voice was calm but worried. Marcus nodded, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, just another day," he muttered, though both knew it wasn't just another day. The story of his life unfolded quietly, like a series of small injustices stacking upon each other. He had grown up in a neighborhood where opportunity was scarce, dreams even scarcer. College had been hard fought, every scholarship and grant a battle, every internship a test of endurance, and yet, here he was, a man capable, intelligent, and ethical, still facing judgment based on the color of his skin. Meanwhile, Darren Harlow thrived in the airport's upper echelons. To most travelers, he was just the manager, efficient, polished, in control. But behind the sharp suits and neatly combed hair was a man who thrived on power and humiliation. Marcus had noticed it before. Small acts that left him second-guessing himself, security random checks that seemed anything but random, casual comments masked as jokes. Marcus's day-to-day life was a delicate balancing act. At work, he navigated microaggressions with a smile, completed tasks with precision, and quietly carried the weight of being constantly underestimated. At home, he poured himself into studying aviation protocols, always seeking to rise above the arbitrary barriers set before him. But no amount of diligence could erase the feeling that the world sometimes saw him as guilty until proven innocent, or, worse, guilty simply because of the color of his skin. That morning's humiliation was just one chapter in a story that had been unfolding for decades. Yet Marcus also had dreams that refused to be silenced. He wanted to ensure safety in aviation, to work in inspection and oversight, not for recognition or fame, but because he believed in fairness and integrity. Jasmine often reminded him, "You've got a mind that can see the cracks before anyone else. That's power, Marcus, don't forget it." But the tension didn't stop at personal struggles. Darren Harlow had been planning something more insidious. Marcus didn't know it yet, but the bag of drugs was only the beginning of a setup designed to crush him. Harlow thrived on creating fear, on making Marcus question his every move. Every glance, every smirk from the manager was a calculated effort to destabilize him. Marcus rose from the bench and walked to the nearby lounge, trying to steady his breath. The fluorescent lights reflected off polished floors, casting shadows that seemed larger than life. Every step echoed in the quiet terminal, reminding him that he was alone in a space crowded with strangers. And yet, beneath the fear, a calm determination began to build. They can try to stop me. They can try to frame me. But I will not let them define who I am. Jasmine joined him moments later, her presence grounding him. "We need to figure this out," she said, scanning the lounge with wary eyes. Marcus nodded, feeling the first sparks of strategy ignite. Small victories could be planned, loopholes exploited, truth revealed. But it would take courage, patience, and precision. As Marcus and Jasmine quietly discussed their next steps, Harlow's smirk faded for a brief moment. He sensed the fire in Marcus, the defiance that no humiliation could extinguish. And for the first time, he realized this wouldn't be as easy as he thought. The day progressed with tense normalcy. Passengers rushed, announcements echoed, and security cameras silently recorded every interaction. Marcus continued his duties, each step measured, each action careful. He knew he couldn't afford a single misstep, not when the stakes were this high. But as the hours wore on, subtle signs of tension began to accumulate. A colleague's unusual glance, a message from an unknown number hinting at danger. Small things whispered that something bigger was coming. By evening, Marcus found himself alone in the quiet inspection office, surrounded by charts, manuals, and aviation logs. The weight of the day's humiliation still pressed on him, but so did the resolve. He reviewed protocols, memorized security checkpoints, and considered every possible angle. Every scenario, every what if, became part of a mental map. And then came the mini cliffhanger, a soft knock at the door. Marcus looked up, expecting perhaps Jasmine or a late-arriving colleague, but the figure in the doorway was unexpected, someone who could change everything. His pulse quickened. This could be the ally he needed, or a trap he hadn't yet imagined. The office lights flickered as Marcus paced the small inspection room. Outside, the distant hum of departing planes mixed with the faint click of luggage wheels rolling across the polished floors. His mind raced. Every detail of the morning's setup replayed in his head. Darren Harlow's smirk, the bag of drugs, the accusatory stares of strangers. Jasmine leaned against the wall, arms crossed, a frown etched across her face. "Marcus, we need a plan. We can't just wait for this to blow over. Harlow is playing chess while we're sitting on the bench." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "I know, but if we make a move too soon, he'll bury me before anyone even listens. I need evidence of something undeniable." They moved to the corner of the room, pulling out a stack of aviation inspection logs. Marcus scanned through schedules, security reports, and camera footage from earlier in the day. His eyes narrowed. "Harlow's been tampering with reports for months. Look here, Flight delays, random security alerts, patterns only a trained eye would notice. Jasmine's eyebrows lifted. You mean he's been setting people up before? Marcus nodded slowly, a flicker of anger in his eyes. Exactly. And I think I'm next in line for a bigger fall. But if we document everything, we can expose him. For hours, they strategized in hushed voices, the tension punctuated by the occasional PA announcement echoing through the terminal. They planned how to access security camera feeds without drawing attention, mapped out Harlow's office movements, and identified staff members who might secretly support them. You sure about this? Jasmine asked, worry lingering in her tone. If he catches us, you could lose everything. Marcus paused, staring out the window at a plane taxiing toward the runway. I've already lost the respect of half this airport, he said quietly. But I haven't lost my dignity. Not yet. Hours turned into late night. The terminal emptied, leaving them alone with the sterile smell of disinfectant and the faint ozone of electrical panels. Marcus set up a small laptop, hacking together access to security feeds. Each camera angle he unlocked felt like stepping closer to truth and danger. Suddenly, a soft ping echoed from the corner of the screen. Marcus froze. Jasmine held her breath. The camera feed showed Harlow moving down a hallway, holding a key card and a small envelope. Marcus squinted. He's moving something, or someone. I need to follow this. Jasmine shook her head. Wait, are you crazy? You can't just follow him alone. I don't have a choice, Marcus replied, determination hardening his voice. We need to know what's in that envelope. It could be the proof we need. The first mini cliffhanger hit as Marcus grabbed his jacket and slipped into the dimly lit corridor, careful not to trigger any motion sensors. Each step echoed in the silence, his heart pounding like a war drum. Every turn around a corner felt like stepping into a trap. He caught a glimpse of Harlow entering a secure storage room. Marcus ducked behind a pillar, peering through the small glass window. Inside, Harlow carefully placed the envelope on a table and unlocked a cabinet. His hands trembled slightly. Whether from excitement or fear, Marcus couldn't tell. Then came a twist. Harlow pulled out a hidden badge from his pocket, something Marcus had never seen before. Marcus's breath caught. An inspector? His mind raced. If Harlow had official authority, this could ruin everything. But he couldn't back down now. Jasmine's voice crackled softly through the small earpiece Marcus had insisted on using. Marcus, why, what is that? I don't know yet, he whispered. But it could be everything we need. Or it could destroy us. Hours passed as they pieced together Harlow's moves. They discovered subtle manipulations in luggage logs, unexplained random checks, and suspicious messages sent to unsuspecting staff. Every detail fed Marcus's growing determination. They weren't just gathering evidence, they were building a case that would shake the airport from top to bottom. The second mini cliffhanger came when a janitor, an older black man named Lewis, unexpectedly appeared in the hallway. You shouldn't be here, he whispered, eyes darting nervously. Marcus tensed, ready to run, but Lewis extended a hand. I've seen what that man does. I can help. Relief washed over Marcus, but a new tension rose. Trust was rare, and one misstep could undo everything. They planned quickly, using Lewis's knowledge of secret passages and maintenance corridors to monitor Harlow without being detected. Days passed in this cat-and-mouse game. Every morning brought new stress. Will Harlow notice? Will someone report them? Yet Marcus felt a strange exhilaration. For the first time, he was no longer a passive victim. He was a strategist, a fighter armed with knowledge and allies. Another emotional spike hit during a tense conversation with Jasmine. "Marcus, what if we fail?" she asked, eyes glistening. He looked at her, voice steady. "Then at least we tried. At least we didn't let fear define us. Harlow may think he controls everything, but he doesn't control courage." As the climax drew near, Marcus and his allies set up the final phase, a confrontation during the busiest terminal hour. Cameras hidden, evidence compiled, and staff subtly informed. The anticipation was palpable, every tick of the clock echoing like a drumbeat in Marcus's chest. The third mini cliffhanger hit when Harlow unexpectedly approached the control room, suspicious of anomalies in the security feed. Marcus barely managed to switch screens before Harlow noticed something. The tension was unbearable. Would the plan unravel before it even began? Then a subtle twist. An anonymous tip to the airport authority hinted at misconduct, giving Marcus the leverage he needed. Yet the timing was delicate. Too early, and Harlow would cover his tracks. Too late, and Marcus could be exposed. By the final night, Marcus and Jasmine were exhausted but resolute. Every step, every whispered instruction, every quiet nod between allies carried the weight of months of planning and injustice endured. Marcus looked at the terminal from above, lights reflecting off the polished floors, and thought, "This is it. No turning back." The terminal was alive with the chaos of the late afternoon rush. Families, business travelers, and tourists moved through the crowded space, unaware of the storm about to erupt in the heart of the airport. Marcus stood with Jasmine and Lewis, near a quiet corner, hidden from view but with a perfect line of sight to the main hall. Cameras had been strategically positioned, and the compiled evidence was ready. Every nerve in Marcus's body thrummed with tension. "This is it," Jasmine whispered, glancing at the growing crowd. "Once we make our move, there's no going back." Marcus nodded. He could see Darren Harlow across the hall, surveying the terminal with his usual air of superiority. The bag of drugs from the morning sat innocuously in his office, ready to serve as bait in the final act. Harlow had no idea that Marcus had gathered months of evidence, documenting every manipulation, every unfair accusation, every microaggression, designed to humiliate and intimidate. Lewis motioned subtly, pointing to a maintenance corridor leading to the control room. "That's your window," he said. "Once you're in there, you control the cameras. You can expose him to everyone, staff, passengers, security, without him knowing until it's too late." Marcus took a deep breath, steadying himself. His heart pounded, but his resolve was steel. This was the moment where months of planning collided with a lifetime of injustice. No more running. No more silent humiliation. He slipped into the corridor, creeping past cleaning carts and dimly lit hallways. Through the small security access door, he entered the control room. Screens lit up, each one showing a different angle of the terminal. Marcus's fingers danced over the controls, switching feeds, preparing the reveal. Back in the hall, Harlow's attention remained on the incoming flights. He didn't notice the murmurs of staff gathering discreetly near the main concourse, alerted by Jasmine's subtle signals. The anticipation was palpable, the air thick with tension. Marcus took one final look at the evidence, timestamps showing Harlow's manipulations, footage of him planting random checks, messages revealing threats to colleagues, and most damning, the envelope containing falsified accusations, including the morning's drug setup. With a decisive motion, Marcus triggered the broadcast across the terminal's public screens. Instantly, the video played. Harlow, caught red-handed manipulating logs, placing false evidence, smirking as he framed Marcus. The crowd froze, Conversations died mid-word. Whispers escalated into murmurs of disbelief. Harlow's face paled. His smirk vanished, replaced by shock and panic. He tried to regain control, pressing buttons on the control panel. But Marcus had locked the system. Every screen in the terminal displayed the truth. Staff, passengers, and security officers watched as the facade crumbled before their eyes. What is this?" Harlow stammered, voice shaking. His usual authority was gone, replaced by desperation. Marcus stepped into the hall, every eye turning toward him. "This," he said, voice steady but robust, "is the truth. You tried to humiliate me, frame me, and destroy my life, and you weren't the only one. But the evidence doesn't lie." A tense silence followed. Then murmurs turned into gasps, whispers into exclamations. Staff approached, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others nodding in quiet support of Marcus. Jasmine moved to Marcus's side. "We documented everything," she said. "Your power ends here." Harlow's panic escalated. He turned to security officers, trying to assert authority. "This is unauthorized. You don't understand." But the officers, now aware of the manipulated evidence, hesitated. Some looked at each other, realization dawning. The authority he had wielded so casually for years had vanished in minutes. And then came the twist no one expected. A senior aviation inspector, previously off duty, appeared from the control center. His presence carried undeniable authority. "Mr. Harlow," he said, voice calm but firm, "step aside. I've been reviewing these anomalies for months. Marcus's findings confirm my suspicions. You've misused your position." Harlow's eyes widened in horror. You can't." "Yes, we can," the inspector interrupted. "And we will." The crowd in the terminal erupted, not in chaos but in stunned murmurs of realization. Some passengers clapped quietly, and staff members exchanged glances of relief and vindication. Marcus felt a wave of adrenaline and validation. Months of silent endurance had led to this moment. The truth exposed, the perpetrator revealed, justice unfolding before everyone's eyes. Harlow tried one last desperate move, reaching for his office phone. But Lewis, from the sidelines, subtly, blocked him, and a security officer stepped in, handcuffs ready. Harlow's authority evaporated completely as he was escorted away. His carefully constructed world of manipulation had collapsed in a single cinematic act. Marcus exhaled, tension leaving his body in a rush. Jasmine smiled, eyes shimmering with pride. "You did it," she said softly. "We did it." But Marcus's mind was still racing. He watched the reactions of staff, passengers, and colleagues. Some looked at him with newfound respect. Others, who had doubted him, now avoided eye contact, ashamed. He realized the impact went beyond personal vindication. It was a moment that would resonate throughout the airport, changing how people saw authority, bias, and justice. A final emotional spike hit as Marcus approached the public terminal announcement system. With calm authority, he addressed everyone. "Today, the truth matters more than fear. We cannot let bias or power define who we are or what we believe. Let this be a reminder. Justice is possible, and courage is contagious." The terminal erupted, not in chaos but in applause, quiet cheers, and nods of approval. Marcus felt a deep, overwhelming relief but also humility. The fight had been larger than him. The victory belonged to integrity, transparency, and the countless people who suffered in silence before him. And then came the final mini-cliffhanger for the climax. Harlow, escorted out, muttered something under his breath, a hint that his manipulations weren't entirely uncovered, that the story wasn't over. Marcus caught the words, but he didn't flinch. For the first time, he knew that even if threats lingered, his courage and preparation would always be his shield. The crowd slowly dispersed, whispers of admiration and disbelief echoing in the high ceilings of the terminal. Marcus and Jasmine shared a quiet, knowing glance. They had faced fear, injustice, and power, and emerged victorious. But the lesson extended far beyond the airport walls. The airport felt different the next morning. The hum of activity continued as usual, yet the energy was changed, charged with a quiet awareness. Staff moved with a subtle confidence, travelers passed through with a renewed sense of calm, and the security team operated under stricter oversight. For the first time in months, the airport felt like a place where fairness mattered. Marcus walked through the terminal, Jasmine at his side. Every glance from colleagues and passengers carried a hint of respect, a recognition of the courage it took to stand against injustice. He no longer felt the heavy weight of silent judgment. The humiliation of the past days had been replaced with validation. Still, it was deeper than personal vindication. It was a moral victory. Harlow was gone, escorted out, and suspended pending a full investigation. The airport administration had launched a comprehensive review of security practices, and Marcus's meticulous documentation became the cornerstone of a new era of transparency. Staff who had felt powerless now spoke up without fear, inspired by what Marcus had accomplished. But for Marcus, the most profound impact was personal. He had endured humiliation, false accusations, and targeted bias, yet he had turned fear into action. He realized that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was taking a stand despite it. The applause of strangers wasn't what mattered. It was the quiet, unwavering conviction that he had done what was right, no matter the cost. Jasmine smiled at him as they walked past the main hall. "You changed things," she said softly. "Not just for you, but for everyone who's ever been in your shoes." Marcus nodded, feeling a mix of relief, pride, and reflection. "It's not just about exposing him," he said. "It's about showing that integrity matters, that we can't let power go unchecked, and we can't let fear decide who we are." Lewis, the janitor who had helped them navigate hidden corridors, appeared and gave Marcus a firm handshake. "You did something that'll be remembered here," he said. "People will talk about this for a long time." The terminal continued to buzz with life, but Marcus felt a profound calm settle over him. He had faced the worst of human manipulation and emerged not just unbroken, but strengthened. Every injustice he had endured, every moment of doubt, every sneer and whisper, it had all led to this resolution. And yet the story carried a subtle warning. Harlow's final words, muttered under his breath, lingered in Marcus's mind. "The fight isn't always over." Marcus knew that injustice could resurface in new forms against him or anyone else. But he also knew that courage, truth, and meticulous preparation were more potent weapons than fear or manipulation. As he stepped onto the observation deck overlooking the runway, Marcus watched planes take off and land, each one a symbol of movement, transition, and possibility. For every injustice faced, there was potential for change, and Marcus had become living proof. He turned to Jasmine and Lewis. "This is just the beginning," he said. "We've made a statement, yes, but our work, our vigilance, it continues." Jasmine smiled knowingly. "And you won't face it alone." Marcus's heart swelled with gratitude. He had allies, a community, and most importantly, the knowledge that integrity could prevail even in the face of orchestrated lies. The terminal might return to routine, but its air now carried the weight of justice realized, and the hope that fairness could survive in a world too often tainted by prejudice. In that moment, Marcus understood something profound. Victories against injustice are never personal. They ripple outward, affecting everyone who witnesses courage, action, and truth. He had turned humiliation into empowerment, fear into determination, and injustice into a lesson for all who dared to watch and learn. The terminal buzzed around him, but Marcus felt grounded, confident, and unshakable. The fight for justice continued, but he had proven that one person, armed with courage, evidence, and allies, could make an undeniable difference. Marcus stood at the observation deck, the golden light of the setting sun glinting off the airplanes below. He thought back to the humiliation he had endured just days before, the whispers, the accusing stares, the weight of being unfairly judged. It was a stark reminder of a truth that many ignore. Prejudice and injustice can hide behind authority, polish, and power. But Marcus also understood something deeper. Courage isn't loud. It isn't about proving yourself to the world. It's about standing firm when the world doubts you, when every instinct screams to stay silent. It's about taking action, however small or risky, to ensure truth and fairness prevail. He looked at Jasmine and Lewis, the allies who had stood by him, and realized that no one can fight injustice alone. Change requires community, trust, and strategy. It requires patience, observation, and a relentless commitment to integrity. And yet, he knew that victory was never absolute. Harlow's muttered words still echoed in his mind. Injustice can return, disguised in new forms, against anyone who dares to challenge it. But Marcus's experience had taught him a vital lesson. Preparation, courage, and evidence can level the playing field, even when those in power try to bend the rules. For everyone watching this story unfold, there is a simple but profound takeaway. We cannot remain passive in the face of injustice. Whether in a workplace, school, neighborhood, or airport terminal, silence allows unfairness to grow. Speaking up, documenting truth, and standing with allies can transform fear into action and humiliation into empowerment. So reflect. What would you do if it were you? If someone tried to frame you, humiliate you, or deny your dignity simply because of who you are? Would you fight, remain silent, or seek allies to expose the truth? Marcus's story is not just a tale of personal victory, it's a universal lesson in courage, justice, and resilience. And while his airport battle may be over, the principles he lived by, truth, perseverance, and integrity, can guide anyone facing the shadows of bias and oppression. The fight for justice is ongoing, but one thing is clear. When courage meets strategy, injustice can be exposed and the truth will always have its day.